I'm the storyteller, and my stories must be told. I have many stories, tales for both the young and old. I have many voices to describe many places. Many names have I, and many faces. In Russia I am Ivan, in Sweden I am Jan. In Germany I'm Johann, in America I'm John. From my many travels I have gathered these tales to teach you good sense when all else fails. Sometimes there are tears, sometimes there is laughter, but always are happily ever after.
Long ago and far away in a distant land, there once lived a very wealthy merchant. He had grown rich by being the shrewdest trader in the whole city. He was well loved and well respected in his community, but people treated him warily too, for his quick temper was very well known. The only person on whom his wrath had never fallen was his son Hassan, whom he worshipped. Although he loved this young man very dearly, he didn't have very much confidence in Hassan's talents as a merchant. It was time for the boy to go off to trade for the first time on his own. The merchant sent him off with Ali, his most able and clever assistant. He knew that his son always tried very hard to please him. He hoped that with time and experience, Hassan would be a good trader, but he doubted it. Even the merchant's doubts about his son's abilities were tempered with his loving blessing as he watched the boat sail slowly out of the bay. It was time for the boy to prove himself and to learn at first hand what being a merchant was all about. He was in the hands of God. The merchant had done all he could to teach Hassan, and he could do no more. Hassan had none of the qualms and misgivings of his father. He was eagerly looking forward to this great adventure. He was pleased his father had sent Ali with him. The two boys had grown up together and were almost like brothers. They sailed for many days. They landed on a rocky shore, close to a prosperous town, which Ali said was an excellent place to sell their wares at a good profit. They were busy unloading their crates and bundles when they saw something which made Hassan very angry. Why did nobody do anything to help the beautiful girl who was being so badly treated by those ruffians? He would have to do something about it. If he had known what a den of thieves and pirates he was going into, he might not have gone. With the girl's cries for help still ringing in his ears, he looked at the villainous bunch. How could he save her from such ruffians? Without thinking, he offered all the goods they had brought in exchange for the girl. The thieves lost no time in sending one of the gang to see if what the foolish young man had claimed was true. The pirate certainly knew the value of Hassan's wares. The gang soon ascertained that the young man did indeed possess all the treasure he said he had and more. What unexpected luck! They would not have got half as much for the girl if they had sold her in the slave market, and they lost no time in concluding the bargain with the innocent young man. Hassan, for his part, was delighted that things had worked out smoothly and hurried the girl away from that sinister place back to the safety of the boat. At first, the girl was terrified during the long voyage back, but Hassan's gentleness and his kind words soon put her at her ease. He assured the girl that he meant her no harm and that he would take her back to the safety of his own home. He soon had her smiling and laughing at his jokes. He made sure that she had every comfort available on the small boat and treated her like a princess. Indeed, to him she soon seemed like one, for he had never seen anyone more beautiful, nor had spoken to anyone so gentle. He was sure his father, anxiously awaiting his return, would welcome the girl with open arms. By the time the little boat sailed into Hassan's home port, the two had fallen deeply in love. The merchant was very glad to see his son safely back home, and it seemed, by the empty holes in the boat, that Hassan had done well in selling all his wares. The old man's heart sank when he saw the strange young woman. He didn't know who she was, but he felt sure that somehow all was not well. He saved the questions until he had heartily welcomed back the voyagers. Hassan told his father that he wanted to marry the beautiful young woman. The old man threw up his hands in despair. When he heard the whole story, that Hassan had bought her for the entire cargo of valuable goods, the merchant felt that the heavens had rained special curses on him for having such an unwise son. Tell me that you tried to barter, that you only paid half the treasure for this girl, not all of it, the merchant pleaded. Alas, it was only too true. Hassan hadn't even attempted to bargain with the pirates. His father had to admit that the girl was beautiful. He himself couldn't have chosen a lovelier, more charming girl for Hassan if he'd tried. At least it seemed that in some areas his son did have some sense. He realized too, when he spoke to the girl, that she was very well bred. Reluctantly, he consented to the marriage, even if the girl brought no dowry with her. What's done is done, he sighed in resignation. But my son, it was a heavy price to pay. Still, now you're here, let us feast. Hassan was now determined to prove that he could be as good a merchant as his father. Soon after his wedding, he set off with a fresh trainload of merchandise in a new direction to redeem his reputation. Again, the merchant had many words of good advice to give his son, tearfully begging the young man to please think before he undertook any chivalrous or extravagant acts. And as before, he sent Ali to help advise her son. "Go with God," the old man sighed as the train set off. Hassan's mind was full of his good fortune and his beautiful bride. They travelled for many days. They came to a large city, which looked a likely place in which to sell their wares. But as they entered the city gates, they heard the most fearful commotion. Men shouting, women screaming, and babies crying at the tops of their voices. Hassan and his party watched in horror as rough soldiers hauled away the screaming women with their babies, knocked defenseless old men and young boys to the ground, and hit out at everyone who tried to stop them. The whole marketplace was in chaos. When Hassan asked what was happening, he was told to mind his own business. One of the merchants told him that the governor had introduced a new tax on the people. Those who could not pay were to be arrested and thrown into jail. What a cruel tyrant this governor must be, Hassan thought. What can I do to help these poor people? He hurried back to the place where his party were already beginning to unload all the goods they had brought, and he commanded them to sell everything as quickly as possible, regardless of the price. Hassan wanted to raise as much money as fast as he could to pay the poor people's taxes and release them from prison. With such an arrangement, it was not surprising that all the city's greedy merchants were soon gathering around to snap up the bargains. They'd never seen such fine rugs, silver and copperware in their lives, being sold off for a fraction of their true value. Ali did everything he could to try and raise the prices higher, but received no help from Hassan. "Sell them for whatever you can get, no haggling, no delays," he commanded. So all those beautifully woven rugs, all that finely wrought brassware soon disappeared. And Ali groaned when he saw how little Hassan was being paid. Hassan's plan succeeded. When he and his party left the town, they were heroes. They left with empty panniers and empty pockets, but with the gratitude of the poor people ringing in their ears. A sound which comforted Hassan during the weary journey back to his home, and stifled Ali's predictions that at last the merchant would realize his son was mad. When they at last arrived home, with their empty bags, it seemed as if Ali's gloomy predictions would all come true. His father was delighted, as it seemed at first sight that Hassan had sold all his wares. The merchant's joy soon turned to rage when he learnt the truth. "I couldn't leave those poor people to languish in prison, father," Hassan pleaded. "What had he done to deserve such a stupid son? Try and put some sense into your husband's thick head, my girl," he said to his daughter-in-law. "You don't know what a numbskull you've married." The girl was only too pleased to welcome Hassan home again. The merchant decided there was only one way to make his son see sense. When Hassan set off again with a fresh convoy of goods, his father handed him a rolled-up painting, saying, "Take this portrait of your wife with you, my son. Whenever you plan to do something foolish, first look at her face. When I am gone, you will have to provide for her. If you keep on acting as you do, you will have not a penny left." With his father's warning ringing in his ears, Hassan set off once more, with trusty Ali as his companion. The young man was really very depressed by his father's stern words. He realized that he may have helped other people by his actions, But he certainly hadn't helped his own family. He felt a total failure. He refused to go into the next town they approached in case he saw something that upset him, and set out his merchandise outside the city walls. "If merchants pass by here, let them find me," he told Ali. "I just seem to find trouble in cities." Sure enough, one curious merchant who had heard from travelers about the strange young man came along to see what Hassan was offering, and was surprised to see that the quality of the goods was excellent. Hassan left all the haggling to Ali. He felt he couldn't even strike a proper bargain with customers. And it was true that Ali was good. He hadn't worked for the merchant for years without learning how to get the best price from even the most unpromising tough customer. Hassan sighed to himself. "I can't even sell a brass plate without being robbed." And he sadly contemplated the painting of his wife. At least the sight of her gladdened his heart. He felt he had the best part of the bargain that day. The merchant asked if he might see what Hassan was looking at so intently. But to Hassan's surprise, he asked where the young lady in the picture was to be found, not who she was. "My wife is at home with my father," Hassan told him. "Our beautiful wife, the best wares and an honest assistant?" the merchant cried. "You are a lucky man." And off he went. Ali and Hassan too were pleased with the outcome of the exchange. They were so engrossed with counting the money that Ali had earned them that they did not see or hear the arrival of a fine procession until it was almost on top of them. The grand-looking Sultan reclining in the litter summoned Hassan. What could such an important man possibly want with a humble trader? "I hear you have a beautiful wife," the Sultan said. Hassan readily agreed that this was so. "Let me see that my friend the merchant did not exaggerate her beauty," the Sultan cried, and Hassan happily showed him the portrait. "You say this is your wife? How did this come to be?" So Hassan told him how he had bought her from the pirates and had taken her to his father's house, where they had got married soon afterwards. "Young man, your wife is my daughter, stolen from me by pirates. I am delighted she found such protection. I insist that you and your father return with her immediately. You must all come to my palace." The Sultan, with his procession, set off in the direction of the city. Hassan's triumphant return home was quite different from previous times. He arrived home in state, attended by the Sultan's chief minister and bodyguards. It was such a joyous occasion. Everyone was delighted. As soon as they possibly could, Hassan and his family set off for the Sultan's palace. The merchant told the faithful Ali that now he, the honest assistant, could have half the merchant's entire business. The gods of good fortune seemed to smile on everyone. and Ali didn't know whether to laugh with joy or cry with sadness at his master's departure. That night, as the party rested at an inn, the minister treacherously tried to murder Hassan. And if it hadn't been for his wife's swift reactions, he would surely have been killed. The minister was no match for Hassan. The next day, the party arrived in the city in triumph. The chief minister was safely bound in chains. Hassan was quite overawed by the splendor of his wife's true home. The Sultan couldn't wait to welcome his lost daughter. He had been afraid his only child was lost forever. He couldn't do enough for the brave young man who had saved her from a terrible fate. It was a very happy reunion. Even Hassan's father was a little overawed by the occasion. The chief minister made an astonishing confession that he had paid the pirates to kidnap the princess. By the law of the land, he would then become the ruler when the Sultan died. But now she was back and married, her husband would rule instead. There was no doubt the evil man should be executed. To everyone's surprise, Hassan defended the man. He had given many years of loyal service. What he had done was unforgivable, but he was now sorry. Could not some other punishment be found for him? Hassan was so eloquent in the man's defense that the Sultan decreed that the minister should be sold as a slave. Everyone agreed that this was the most fitting punishment for the crimes he had committed. "You have married a wise man as well as a caring one," the Sultan told his daughter, and then turning to the merchant he said, "You have brought up your son wisely and well. He is a credit to you, and I thank God he is married to my daughter. I shall have no fears for the well-being of my people with such a ruler to guide them. I know that when the time comes, he will rule my people honestly, wisely, and justly, for his head will always be guided by his heart."